The promise of life, of growth, of development. At the heart of this promise, of these expectations, lie two fundamental requirements: nourishment and proper nutrition. People's very lives and their potential for social development depend on how well they are fed and nourished. For most of the people of Central America, this is not a simple task. Their hopes for an adequate food supply, for adequate nutrition, are marked by hardship, but also by a promise of development within their countries themselves. Development which is geared toward improving the opportunities of the average person for access to proper foods, their selection and consumption. Development which increases the production and distribution of better quality basic foods. Development which guarantees care and attention to health and the environment, ensuring that people receive proper nutritional benefit from the foods which they consume. These conditions, in order to be met, require improving the knowledge and skills of those who direct the efforts of others in the areas of food production, consumption, healthcare, and the environment. This requirement, for a base of practical knowledge, calls for an apprenticeship on the part of those who work in areas which link nourishment and nutrition, with a vision of human development and social well-being. Since its foundation in 1949 as a specialized center of the Pan American Health Organization, the Institute of Nutrition for Central America and Panama, INCAP, has directed its activities toward a scientific search for ways to improve the nutrition of the region's peoples. INCAP's scientific and technological research and its participation in higher education and training programs for those who must implement food and nutritional planning have been the keys to cooperation between INCAP and the individual countries. For a number of years, the efforts of each country were concentrated on curing the effects of widespread malnutrition. This gave INCAP a strong incentive to educate and train healthcare personnel from each country. At its headquarters in Guatemala, INCAP organized a series of pre- and postgraduate courses, as well as specific workshops and tutorial assistance, which enabled hundreds of professionals, technicians, and others, principally in the healthcare field, to improve their knowledge of the basics of proper nutrition and nourishment. In addition, participants broadened their skills in the areas of decision-making and nutrition and healthcare services. Since 1972, with the nutritionists trained by INCAP, a number of university-level programs have been founded in El Salvador, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, and Guatemala. Since then, while continuing to contribute to the education of nutritional specialists, INCAP began looking for ways to extend its support to the training of personnel within their own countries. The region's worsening economic and political crisis, which has paralyzed or even reversed the advances made in healthcare and nutrition, has spurred the individual countries, along with PAHO, to prepare a plan of healthcare priorities. Since 1984, under this plan, urgent attention has been given to the serious nutritional problems which have been aggravated by the crisis. With the help of a number of governments and agencies from developed countries, INCAP initiated a series of projects which include support in the specific countries for the training of those personnel who work in maternal and child support programs. Supplementary food programs and community education programs on nourishment and nutrition. Simultaneously, INCAP designed a broad strategy directed towards strengthening those nutrition-related aspects in each country's education and training programs, which have the greatest impact on the agricultural, educational, and healthcare sectors, among others. This is directed toward reinforcing the activities of change agents, those who work to improve the production of nutritional foodstuffs, those who promote the education of consumers, those who work to increase the efficiency of community social services directed toward improving the health of individuals, families, and communities. Since 1986, this strategy has led to establishing 3 objectives for INCAP's cooperation in the area of human resource development. First, support for the nutrition-related aspects of the education received by professionals and technicians in the individual countries. Second, support for the training of personnel already providing services. And third, support directed toward increasing the know-how of professional and technical workers and social workers who plan activities within communities. To encourage this new approach to addressing nutritional problems, each country organized interdisciplinary groups consisting of members from different fields of endeavor who identify, within each field or profession, those problems which prevent coherent and effective action from taking place.
We were able to detect various problems. One is the lack of overall visualization of the problems relating to food and nutrition. Another is the failure of policies. There was the lack of planned processes for training. Another aspect we discovered was the lack of coordination among the nourishment, nutritional focuses of a single institution. We also discovered a need for evaluations.
As a result of this process, the same interdisciplinary groups formulated plans for improving their training and education programs. This allowed INCAP to prepare a human resources support program at the regional level, which since 1988 seeks to reinforce the understanding and skills of those persons in each country who work in the field of nutritional development. The agronomists, technicians, and aides in the agricultural sector, the professors and teachers in the educational sector, the doctors, nurses, and aides in the healthcare sector, and the nutritionists whose support is required across all sectors. One of the principal supports which INCAP provides in the area of human resources encompasses the educational processes undertaken within each field of endeavor when these have been identified as critical by a particular country. These include universities, schools, or technical institutes, which must provide the education in nutrition which is necessary for those with different roles to play at different levels. In the areas of planning, in the areas of decision-making and management, and by those who provide direct assistance to the community. Assistance to those who produce foodstuffs, to those who consume them, and to those who need health care and require advice and support in order to improve their living conditions. INCAP's support of activities in the area of education within the individual countries can be summarized as support for the planning of the nutritional-related aspects of educational programs and courses, assistance in bringing up to date the instructors who put them into practice, and facilitating the means of obtaining educational and bibliographic materials. The revision and planning of programs and courses in order to reinforce or incorporate nutritional components has already been initiated throughout the region. These activities include support for educational centers for professionals, technicians, and aides who work in the agricultural, educational, or healthcare sectors. With the support of INCAP, the national groups at each training center develop educational profiles which correspond to practical know-how in nutritional areas, which must be incorporated or reinforced in the education received. In order to develop these profiles, each group analyzes its national situation, concentrating on its nutritional aspects, their causes and prospects for the future. In this way, they clarify the role of the different sectors in the areas of nourishment and nutrition in their countries, and they specify the technical functions required of each sector. In the training process, these are translated into objectives, content, and practices.
Nosotros en nuestro pensum de estudios
in our curriculum, here in the Agricultural Training School, IFA, we began to include objectives and content in nourishment and nutrition in all courses in the area of agricultural production. We began to emphasize the nutritional importance of rabbits, hogs, cows, and goats, as well as the importance of all cultivated products. We also saw the necessity of creating a course in nourishment and nutrition, in which the students come to know the components of an adequate meal plan in order to improve their own nutrition, so that this knowledge can be put to use in their own communities. To do all this, INCAP's help has been essential. They supported us in the revision of the new curriculum and in the training of the instructors, of the personnel in the school kitchen, and the personnel in charge of the extracurricular classes. Now we are able to complete a package of revisions which permits its total integration into the agricultural production systems.
At the Agricultural Training School, they teach many things. Upon returning to your own community, you see what the community needs the most. In my case, I'm working on a project with goats and rabbits. After seeing the malnutrition of the children from around here, we decided that a way to combat it would be to promote the consumption of goat's milk and the raising and consumption of rabbits. I began to apply what I'd learned at the school. When we gave the doe rabbits to the people, we gathered all the families together, and I taught them how to feed the rabbits, how to improve their breeding, and other aspects related to raising them.
INCAP's technical support for the education faculty of the University of Costa Rica is composed of 3 basic areas, which can be expanded later on. One of the areas is curriculum planning, another is educational research, and the third is the area of social action. In the area of curriculum planning, we developed a workshop which allowed us to obtain an initial curriculum analysis, which we could apply to preschool education, and then to primary and secondary education. To this, we've added what we in the faculty call training courses. In the area of educational research, we're working on 2 projects. The first deals with nutrition and nourishment. The second has to do with the need for instruction in nourishment and nutrition for those individuals who train instructors. In the area of social action, we have developed a communal work project, which includes approximately 190 families. The work is interdisciplinary and includes the participation of students in special education, preschool education, management, nutrition, and nursing.
The action which we have undertaken in cooperation with INCAP is very important. It is important for the education of the new teachers, and it is important for the development of the country.
In Honduras, we began with a diagnosis of the situation among the medical faculty. In conjunction with other healthcare organizations in the country, we developed an epidemiological profile, then an occupational profile, and finally an educational profile, and a program of study. The food and nutritional components which had been identified were incorporated at the different educational levels without waiting for the program of study to be completed. This was done at a rate appropriate to the conditions within the faculty. This effort also impelled us to develop a series of procedures, for example, a methodological strategy for integrating study and work, or EMET, in which the issues of nourishment and nutrition form a part of the entire educational mechanism. In this effort, we have had the fundamental support of INCAP.
In addition to supporting these education programs within the individual countries, the Institute of Nutrition for Central America and Panama emphasizes a similar level of support directed at reinforcing and integrating those activities developed for the training of professionals, technicians, and workers who are already providing services to government programs, as well as to non-governmental projects.
Y con el proyecto de cabras estamos bien, estamos sacando buen productivo. Todos los niños están.
INCAP's support in this area is related to the human resource development departments within each institution, with emphasis on the processes of training in the localities and regions where the services are provided. The revision and improvement of training plans and activities, which consider objectives, content, and nutritional practices, is also a task which the national groups, in a majority of the countries, have begun to undertake with INCAP support.
In this part of El Salvador, the plan was developed with the participation of technicians and professionals. In the seminar workshop which we developed, these personnel proceeded to revise occupational roles. Each of them revised his or her own role, the role of the extension agent, that of the educator, and that of the leadership. Then, incorporating the requirements which they had identified as a baseline, we formulated the different training requirements. The idea was to have a plan whose nutritional components would be supported by INCAP and in non-nutritional areas, to enlist the support of other institutions.
In practice, the training courses contain aspects of theory, field activities, and exercises. The latter permits evaluation of the results and the wider application of what the technician assimilates, so that later on you see a multiplier effect in the transmission to the communities or target populations or to the rest of the service personnel.
La necesidad nace en el Ministerio de Educación en Panamá.
In the Ministry of Education in Panama, there arose the need to bring the teachers up to date regarding the existing information on nourishment and nutrition in the materials entitled Education in the Home, Agriculture, and Natural Science. We developed training which corresponds directly to bringing these study plans up to date. The training of personnel already in service depends on the modernization of the programs of study in the area of primary education. At the same time, we've targeted future teachers. Therefore, we're also revising the program of study in the only school for the education of teachers in the country. We're training the instructors in charge of teaching these concepts to future teachers. INCAP's help has been invaluable. Their technical support for training activities and the resources they provided in order to accomplish the training.
In this part of Nicaragua, we participated in a workshop on the revision of instruction for the two medical faculties in the areas of nourishment and nutrition. Since then, we've seen that a very efficient form of instruction consists of linking teaching with service. We began to revise aspects of our students' work and study. Following these revisions, we held high-level meetings with the Ministry of Health. We established a close relationship between the medical faculties and the ministry, which is dedicated to improving human resource development.
Based on this, once the objectives and contents of the nutritional program were identified, including the requirements for the plans of the study, we began to run a training program which would meet these needs.
Assistance in obtaining educational and bibliographic materials for these and similar programs, and the continuing availability of these materials, is also part of INCAP's support. INCAP's additional efforts in support of educational programs and activities complement its postgraduate program, which by offering a highly specialized level of training in nutrition also contributes to the improvement of human resources in the region. The goal of increasing the ability of others to improve conditions leading to better nourishment and nutrition is an intense, difficult task. Development as a regional priority is complex and an area in which human resource education and training are critical. The principles which guide INCAP's involvement in this area correspond to those of a global program aimed at guaranteed levels of food production, distribution, access, and consumption for all countries. These include sustaining the initiatives in the principal sectors which further the nutritional development of the countries themselves, emphasizing the plans and programs which the countries develop in their own regions and local areas. A correspondence between objectives and educational content, concentrating on know-how in the production of foodstuffs and their proper consumption, and on nutrition and health surveillance. The mobilization of the qualified resources in the region in order to take advantage of their knowledge and experience in cooperation with their own countries or with others. And the availability within each country of a technical staff provided by INCAP, capable of taking care of their cooperative requirements.
In the area of nutritional development, the part which human resources must play in the countries of Central America, technicians as well as the professionals, the scientists and the communities themselves, is fundamental within the new focus with which the countries are beginning the decade. There are for the future two possibilities. One is that the decade which has just begun will be marked poverty and debt. The other, which is more optimistic, and to which INCAP is dedicated, is the rebirth of development. Along this line, the development and training of human resource personnel in the areas of nourishment, nutrition, and health care is fundamental.
The decade just begun is expected to be complex, but at the same time, full of possibilities, of potential. At the heart of this potential is the ability of the Central American communities to create their own social well-being. An ability which is based on overcoming hunger and malnutrition. Overcoming obstacles in the areas of production and distribution of foodstuffs, their selection and consumption. Their utilization requires knowing how to decide and knowing how to act. These are the keys for growth and development.